playing. I wasn't even moving, okay? I was parked at the light when it turned. That's not
your
running
front tires
anything.
were over the stop line when it changed. That's still a red light violation. Let me see your license and registration, please.
I'm literally on my lunch break sitting in a parking lot now. You're pulling me over
Ma'am,
because
I just need the license. We can talk about it after.
It was a typical afternoon in downtown Orlando, Florida. The sun was bright, and the streets were busy with people going about their day. Officer Cade was out on a normal patrol, keeping an eye on the traffic near the intersection of Orange Avenue and Washington Street. Everything seemed fine until he spotted a silver Honda Civic. Instead of slowing down for the bright red light, the car kept going and drove straight through the intersection without stopping. Officer Cade immediately turned on his lights to pull the car over for the traffic violation. He watched closely as the Civic made a quick turn into a nearby parking lot. It didn't look like a normal stop. The driver seemed to be in a hurry to get off the main road and out of sight. Cade followed the car into the lot and pulled up right behind it. As he stepped out of his patrol car, he could see the driver moving around quickly inside the Civic, as if she were trying to hide something before he reached the window. This routine traffic stop was already starting to feel like it might turn into something much more serious. Lexi Thorne saw the flashing blue and red lights in her rearview mirror, but she didn't stop immediately. Instead of pulling over on the busy street, she quickly turned the silver Honda Civic into the Hilton parking lot, hoping that reaching her workplace would somehow protect her from the police. She swung the car diagonally across 2 parking spots, leaving it crooked as she tried to finish her mission of getting off the road. As the car came to a jerky stop, Lexi didn't wait for the officer to approach. She began moving frantically in the driver's seat. Officer Cade walked up to the window and immediately noticed her reaching down toward the floorboard, shoving items out of sight, as if she were in a race against time. He tapped on the glass, his voice firm as he asked what she was doing and what she was trying to cover up. Lexi looked up with a look of practiced annoyance, trying to act like she was just a busy employee who was simply in a hurry to get to her shift. She told the officer she wasn't hiding anything and was just grabbing her bag for her license, but her shaky movements and the way she had scurried into the lot suggested she was hiding much more than just a late arrival to work. Officer Cade stood by the car window and told Lexi she had run a red light back at the intersection of Orange and Washington. Lexi didn't look worried. Instead, she looked back at him with a smug smile. She leaned back in her seat and said, "But you can't pull over somebody who's parked." She really believed that because her tires weren't moving anymore, the rules of the road no longer applied to her. Officer Cade was surprised by her logic and asked, "Who said that?" Lexi just repeated that he couldn't do it because she was already at her job. She acted like she had found a secret safe zone that made the police powerless. The officer explained that managing to park a car before being stopped doesn't cancel out a crime that happened just a minute ago. Lexi continued to argue, insisting that since she was on private property, the investigation had to end right then and there. As Lexi continued to argue about being parked, Officer Cade noticed her hands moving quickly near the floor of the car. He leaned in closer, his eyes following her frantic movements. It was clear she was trying to shove something out of sight before he could get a good look. "What are you doing? What are you covering up?" he asked again, his voice getting more serious. Lexi tried to act natural, claiming she was just reaching for her bag to get her driver's license. But the officer had seen her literally throwing items down onto the floorboard just seconds before. He knew from experience that when people hide things during a traffic stop, it usually means there is something illegal in the car. While Lexi kept insisting she was just a busy worker who had done nothing wrong, the officer was focused on the mess she had just made on the floor. He could tell that the parked car argument was likely just a distraction to keep him from seeing what she was really hiding. As Officer Cade leaned closer to the car, his nose caught a familiar, sharp smell that didn't belong in a workplace parking lot. He looked past Lexi's shoulder and spotted exactly what she had been trying to hide on the floorboard.
Yeah.
"There's a bottle in there," he noted, pointing to a large, open bottle of tequila. Lexi immediately tried to deny it, claiming there was no bottle, but the evidence was sitting right in front of them. The officer's suspicion grew even more when he noticed a plastic cup in the center console. He reached in to examine the contents and was hit by the powerful scent of alcohol. "Holy, that is strong," he remarked, realizing the liquid inside was likely straight liquor. When he asked Lexi how many drinks she had today, She looked him in the eye and calmly said, "None." Despite the open bottle at her feet and the strong drink sitting next to her, she stuck to her story. Officer Cade knew that people rarely carry open tequila and mixed drinks unless they are using them, and the parked car excuse was now starting to look like a desperate cover-up for driving while intoxicated. Lexi began to realize that the parked car defense wasn't stopping the officer from looking at the tequila. She quickly switched her story and started making excuses about why she was in such a hurry. She told Officer Cade that she worked right here at the Hilton and that she was simply late from break. She kept saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, hoping that being a polite employee would make the officer let her go with just a warning. Lexi tried to act like her job was more important than the traffic laws she had just broken. She explained that she worked in vacation sales and needed to get inside the building to get back to work. She even tried to use the fact that she was already at her workplace as a reason why she shouldn't be in trouble. However, Officer Cade wasn't focused on her job title. He was focused on the fact that she had driven through a red light while having an open bottle of liquor in her car. He told her to put the car in park and stay put, making it clear that her workplace wasn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. Officer Cade could tell that Lexi was not going to make this stop easy. Even with the open tequila bottle in plain sight, she continued to argue and talk over him, showing a very defiant attitude. Because she was being so uncooperative and restless inside the car, the officer decided he needed to secure her for everyone's safety. He told her to step out of the vehicle, but she hesitated, trying to make more excuses about her phone and her car. "All right, don't resist," Cade warned as he led her to the back of the car. Lexi began to pull her arms away, complaining that she wasn't resisting and that the situation was unfair. Despite her protests, the officer successfully placed her in handcuffs. He explained that she was currently being detained for a traffic stop and a possible DUI investigation. Lexi tried to claim that having a brother who was a police officer should change things, but Cade remained professional. He told her that if she promised to act up no more and cooperate, he might take the cuffs off for the exercises, but for now, her constant attitude had earned her a seat on the bumper. Officer Cade led Lexi over to a flat, dry area of the parking lot to begin the first sobriety test. Even though she was now out of the car, Lexi's mind was still stuck on her parked car theory, telling the officer one more time that he didn't have the right to pull her over. Cade calmly told her they would argue about that later, but for now, she needed to follow his instructions. He explained the first exercise, which is called the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. He held up a small blue light and told Lexi to follow it with her eyes, and only her eyes, without moving her head. Lexi nodded like she understood, but as soon as the light started to move, her whole head turned along with it. "You're moving your head," Cade pointed out. Lexi immediately became defensive, asking, "Am I moving my head?" and insisting that she wasn't. The officer didn't argue. He simply started the test over and told her again to keep her neck still. No matter how many times they tried, Lexi couldn't seem to keep her head from following the light. By the time the exercise was over, the officer noted that she showed 6 out of 6 clues, which is a major sign that a person is under the influence of alcohol. As Officer Cade moved on to the next part of the investigation, Lexi could tell things were not going her way. She knew she had just failed the eye test, so she quickly tried to come up with an excuse for why she was struggling. Before the officer could even start the next exercise, Lexi looked at him and said, "I'm naturally a clumsy person." She hoped that by saying this, the officer would think her lack of balance was just part of who she was, rather than a result of the tequila. Lexi used this clumsy defense to explain away any mistakes she might make during the physical tests. She acted like she was trying her best, but just wasn't good at following physical directions. However, Officer Cade had seen many people use this exact same excuse before. He didn't let it stop him and simply told her that he would take her natural clumsiness into account. He wanted to see if she could follow simple instructions, regardless of how graceful she was. Lexi kept repeating that she was just clumsy, but the officer remained focused on the facts of the roadside investigation. Officer Cade led Lexi to a straight line painted on the pavement for the walk and turn exercise. He told her to put her left foot on the line and her right foot in front of it, touching heel to toe. Lexi struggled just to stand still in this position. She kept stepping off the line and moving her arms to keep from falling over. The officer explained that she needed to take 9 heel-to-toe steps forward, turn around in a specific way, and take 9 steps back. Lexi said she understood, but as soon as she started walking, she lost track of her steps. Instead of 9 steps, she took 10 and then stopped, looking confused. That was 9, she insisted, even though she had clearly miscounted. Officer Cade patiently told her to try again and follow the instructions he had given. Lexi tried a second time, but she still couldn't keep her feet on the line or touch her heel to her toe. She became frustrated and started counting out loud, eventually taking 18 steps in total just to prove she could walk. I have now did 18. Is there anything else you would like? She asked with a rude tone. She was so focused on arguing that she didn't realize that failing to follow the simple instructions was making it very clear to the officer that she was impaired. After Lexi struggled through the walking test, Officer Cade moved to the final exercise, the one-leg stand. He explained that she needed to stand with her feet together, then lift one foot about 6 inches off the ground and count out loud until he told her to stop. Lexi listened, but as soon as she tried to lift her foot, her body began to sway. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 is hard, she admitted as she hopped slightly to keep from falling over. She tried to keep counting, reaching 29, but she couldn't keep her foot in the air or her body still. It was a complete failure of balance. Officer Cade asked her one last time how many drinks she had that day, and Lexi again insisted she had not had any. But the evidence was overwhelming. Between the open tequila in her car, the strong smell on her breath, and her inability to pass any of the physical tests, the officer had seen enough. He told her to put her hands behind her back. Even though she kept denying it, Lexi was now officially being charged with a DUI. Officer Cade stood firmly behind his decision. He explained to Lexi that he had made his determination right there on the road based on his training and his many observations. He told her that she would have the chance to try to prove him wrong in court, but for now, she was officially under arrest. Lexi didn't take the news well. When the officer told her that her car was going to be towed, she became very upset. She began to question why the officers had gone inside her car without her permission. Officer Cade explained that they didn't need her permission because they had probable cause, which means they had a legal reason to search the car after seeing the illegal items inside. Lexi kept yelling, without permission, but the officers stayed focused on the job. They told her to get into the back of the patrol car immediately. When she refused and kept demanding her phone, Cade warned her that she was about to get another charge for resisting a lawful order. While Lexi sat in the back of the patrol car, the tension reached a breaking point. The officers were busy gathering evidence from her Civic, but they soon noticed something strange happening through the window of the police cruiser. Earlier footage showed that Lexi had been moving her hands in a very suspicious way. It turned out she had used her small hands to slip one of her wrists right out of the metal handcuffs. When the officers realized she was no longer fully restrained, the mood of the stop changed instantly. She slipped one of the cuffs already. An officer warned the others. This was a major security risk. Lexi tried to act like she hadn't done anything wrong, but the officers knew she was trying to regain her freedom. This act of defiance turned a simple DUI arrest into a much more dangerous situation, as the officers now had to deal with a suspect who was actively trying to defeat their equipment. The situation became chaotic as the officers tried to move Lexi to a different car for transport. When the female officer approached to perform a final search, Lexi's defiant attitude turned into physical resistance. She began pulling her arms away and twisting her body, making it nearly impossible for the officers to keep a grip on her. "Stop pulling away from me," the officer commanded, but Lexi refused to stay still. Suddenly, Lexi began to scream at the top of her lungs, yelling "help" and "someone," as if she were being attacked. She claimed she was being arrested unlawfully and tried to make a scene in the parking lot. To make things even harder, she began dropping her weight, which means she went limp and tried to fall to the ground so the officers would have to carry her. The officers had to use firm holds on her elbows to keep her upright and moving toward the transport car. Lexi screamed that they were going to break her arm and complained that they were holding her the wrong way. Officer Cade told her plainly that she was causing her own pain by fighting against them. He made it clear that she was no longer in charge and that the more she fought, the more difficult the process would be for her. The struggle did not end once Lexi was away from the Hilton parking lot. After she arrived at the DUI testing center, her behavior became even more aggressive. According to the police records, Lexi refused to cooperate with the breathalyzer test, which is used to measure how much alcohol is in a person's body. She remained angry and defiant, even inside the secure holding area. Things took a very serious turn when Lexi lashed out physically while inside a holding cell. She kicked the heavy cell door with such force that it swung back and struck an officer's hand. This changed the situation from a traffic mistake into a violent crime. Because there are strict rules about privacy, the body cameras were not allowed to record inside the detention center, so the kick itself was not caught on film. However, the officers documented the injury and the attack. By kicking the officer, Lexi added a very serious felony charge to her list: battery on a law enforcement officer. What started as a simple red light violation had now turned into a life-changing violent offense. The long night finally came to an end in a courtroom. Lexi Thorne's attempt to outsmart the police with the parked car loophole had failed completely. The legal system had to decide her fate after looking at all the evidence: the red light violation, the open tequila, her failed tests, and the struggle at the jail. Court records show that the charge for resisting without violence was eventually dropped. However, Lexi could not escape the most serious parts of her behavior. She decided to plead no contest to the remaining charges, including the DUI and the felony battery on a law enforcement officer. This plea meant she accepted the punishment without admitting she was guilty, but the result was the same. What began as a simple afternoon drive ended with a permanent criminal record, proving that a parking lot is never a safe zone for breaking the law.